Hi guys, welcome to the Healthy Brain Podcast with your host as always, Andreas Saris. In today's episode, we have a new guest on the channel, Mr. Daniel Odoi, aka Mamba, where we'll be diving right into video content creation and Daniel's journey into how he has found his true passion and turned it into a full-time business. I hope you guys enjoy the channel, and please, if you guys want more of this content, do not hesitate to subscribe and leave a thumbs up on the channel. Welcome to the Healthy Brain Podcast, episode 6 with my guest, Daniel Odoi, aka Mamba. I hope I pronounced that right, bro.
Nailed it, bro.
Awesome, man. So this episode, we're going to be talking, we're going to find out Daniel's backstory into how he got into videography and all these amazing content that he's produced as he's started with his business. So Daniel, just a quick intro to the viewers and just a little bit about yourself and your background into how you started, man.
Sounds good. And g'day to everyone who's listening. Thank you for your time. Very humbled by the introduction and being able to jump on today's chat. My name is Daniel Odoi, so you actually know the last name. A lot of people struggle at my entire life. I've heard Odoils, Odis, Odos, people drop letters left, front, and center. But in recent years, I've kind of embraced and embodied actually a man that you might see caricaturized up here, Kobe Bryant. His nickname on the court was the Black Mamba. And so growing up, he was a really big hero of mine. And a lot of friends, I want to say friends and others kind of started throwing it my way and it stuck. So yeah, it's really kind of inspired by his kind of sportsmanship and his attitude to life on and off the court. And I kind of try carry that in everything that I've done, beyond basketball growing up into other ventures that I've had, as you mentioned, videography and a few other things. So yeah, even though it's a relatively recent venture, I've had the privilege of kind of launching my own full-time video content agency. I've had a passion for storytelling really for years, really dating back to kind of growing up as a kid, and my dad would just have this beautiful ability of sharing stories. And I just think that, that's something that binds all of us as humans. Stories are what define us, stories are what gets passed on years, decades, centuries through media, TV, books, you name it. So yeah, video is probably my outlet of sharing it. And I've just been really humbled and honored that, I can use those talents, and other people think that what I produce isn't completely crazy. And I get to work with brands as well as produce some of my own content about things that are really important to me and that I'm really passionate about.
Excellent, man. That is very, very inspirational. And just in touching that, dude, with your starting point. So obviously did you always have a passion, I should say, for videography and content creation and all that? Like where was your starting point and how, like, just maybe share with the viewers, like, how the process was into getting to where you are now, basically.
Yeah, happy to. And I don't know if it's a bit of a cliche, but I definitely hear, when you hear of others' journeys, some people that have, taken somewhat unconventional paths, what I find is often said in common is that it's accidental. People say they're an accidental entrepreneur or an accidental videographer, and I'm definitely fall into that camp. I traditionally took a very commerce business orientated background. I studied commerce, I majored in economics and finance. So completely other side of the spectrum from kind of creativity and videography and whatnot. But I think there was a part of me that always enjoyed just being able to communicate to many people, and the power of kind of, I've had, a lifetime of just wonderful mentors and coaches and teachers, that I knew or that I did know. And I just in many ways kind of wanted to kind of pay it forward, I guess, and use my skills to hopefully impact people in the same way. How you have certain teachers in your life that you'll never forget because they said something or made you believe in yourself in a way that, in a heartbeat, it was, your third grade teacher who said this on that day.
Definitely.
And I think there's something really humbling and incredible about that. And so in many ways, I'm not saying I want to go out and be your third grade teacher or Mr. Baxter, whoever it might be. But I just feel really, really privileged to have obviously received so much great guidance from people all along. So I think the video side specifically was more of a fact that, we started, like, this generation that we're in, what we have in our pockets is effectively more cinematic horsepower than what, like, some of the world's best directors had in the 1950s. Like, these devices that we have are just absolutely incredible. And I think I'm always just a curious kid that just loves learning tech and getting to know all the ABCs of it. And it just ended up kind of becoming this outside hobby. As Instagram was taking off, I remember jumping on about it when one of my best mates told me about this platform, and no one was doing video. And I think often sometimes entrepreneurs or those that are kind of, out there trying to make their passion, bigger than just an afterthought, are trying to solve a problem. And in short, my problem was, well, I don't want to say it's my problem, but one of the nuances I kept coming across was that I felt there was great video out there, but it didn't have compelling storytelling, or some of the best storytellers weren't actually making video content. And so my mind was like trying to synthesize these two things and being like, well, there are so many charismatic, beautiful storytellers and orators, but I don't see them in video content. And sometimes, as an entrepreneur, you're kind of trying to solve the problem that you wish you had the solution for. And so I think that was maybe my motivation deep down, to kind of say, well, I want to start sharing some really fun and down to earth and authentic content. And I want to share the moments and the spaces and places, as well as the faces that have kind of been in my journey, whether that's a music festival, whether that's a trip across the world, whether I'm talking about mindset, mental health, certain things that are really important to me. It kind of became more out of this furious passion, this problem that I kept trying to solve, and realizing that I just don't feel there are as many people out there that are finding that sweet blend between storytelling and really, really, well-crafted cinematography or videography. And then, that kind of kept being a bit of a weekend hobby that was just eating at me while I was, following my career. I was working in a lot of tech and a lot of startup spaces, but I couldn't let go of it. You know what I mean? Like, I just couldn't let that itch go. Maybe similar to your story with this podcast. And, it was always something you were drawn to, and I always kept coming back to it. And often with more hunger than before. So I was just really grateful that I think I kind of, had a fantastic community of friends and mentors that kind of towards late 2020 and with, what the world was going through, had a lot of time to really reflect on, I think, who I was, what was really important to me, and knowing that I'd sprinted so hard for most of my 20s and kept feeling like I was just burning myself out. I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. Like, what's something that feels effortless to me, that fills my cup, that nourishes me, that makes me feel like I'm having an impact and I can leave a legacy behind? And so, just finding the pieces and the structure to take a passion into a full-time agency was the messy but fun part. And that's what I've really been building and figuring out for most of 2021. So that's what, that's where I'm at today.
Excellent story, Daniel. And it's very interesting insight to share that to the viewers, because it shows that, like, you've obviously followed your true passion, which is, content creation, video, producing videos through social media. And it's really indicated the work that you've done, and that it's possible. And it also goes back to just following your dreams and just doing it, man, just sending it, as Tommy says. So exactly right, man. So no, that's very great story behind it. And in saying that, you did mention that you did study economics, which is a totally different area of field, I should say. So how did that, like, when you're obviously at uni or whatnot, how did you pretty much realize, I don't want to be doing this for a career, I want to be, switching to my true passion, which is what you're doing now? Like, just a bit of a story on that, just for the viewers, just to share.
Such a relevant question, and it's a crossroad that all of us cover. So I hope that my response can be taken outside of a business context necessarily, but more broader to life. A good friend, a good mentors of both of ours, often focuses on taking your next best step in life. And there's no clear definition as to what the next best step is, but quite often it's something you have to define yourself. So for most of my life, I've really used a good cocktail, I'd say, of, rationality and research and due diligence, coupled with my gut instinct, coupled with coming back to, what really lights me up at the end of the day, what's something that feels effortless to me. And I think at the time, I remember kind of coming out of like high school and into university, we just kind of came out of the 2008, 2009 GFC, which obviously didn't impact Australia, as significantly as it did, with the US and European countries. But I was just driven by pure curiosity. Like I have no other responses to say why I did economics. I literally just went, there's no explanation. Like, I have no explanation for why this occurred. I don't know anyone that can break this down for me. I just want to go learn the subject that's going to tell me the answer. And that's quite literally always been what's, dictated my next best step. It's, I just want to find the answer out to that. I don't know how that answer might fit into the broader picture, but right now that's the need that I'm kind of inspired by. And I did the degree and learned, I think, learned a lifetime of knowledge in that, just understanding, from a wealth and from monetary perspective, how many systems and structures and institutions of the world interact, how our material and non-material standards of living are all impacted as a result. I just felt that was something that at least I missed in my, upbringing in primary and secondary school. But yeah, I think it was kind of, once I'd satiated that kind of desire, or that, that need to find out, I think my brain just kind of went, right, well, what's the next best step? Because I know I'm not going to work a career in this. I just really wanted to solve this big answer that I had. So I've always been guided by what the next step is. And that's kind of, I don't want to call it a short-sightedness, but I think, as Steve Jobs often quips, it's about kind of being able to look back and connect all of the dots and acknowledge that all played a crucial part of your journey. And so I can say that by doing that degree and by going to that university, I met so many great people that then got me onto my next opportunity. And by that next opportunity, which is my graduate role in the Uber operations team in Uber Melbourne, back in 2015, that then got me onto even further opportunities into new cities that met other people. So I think I kind of, have this, I don't know, somewhat intuitive woo-woo instinct to kind of have to say, I don't have to know how to map things out. I know what I want and I know what aligns with who I am. I don't have to know what steps 5, 10, 15 are. If I just know what I'm doing in the present is really aligned with who I am, because I'm going to be able to figure things out. So yeah, that was kind of the economics pivot, which is probably when I actually started making content at the same time. So maybe I'm glad I picked it up and I knew I had my plan B, C, or D, at the same time. But yeah, that's where economics got me from to where I am today.
That's very interesting. You bring that up because I've never heard it like in the way you've explained it. I haven't really heard it in such a way where it's kind of like pivoted yourself to what you're doing now and giving you that inspiration. And I think your tribe around you is very underrated. Like a lot of people don't really, like, more people now are talking about it, but before, so like I remember when I was at uni, no one used to mention that. Like everyone just used to just want to get the degree, get the hell out, and just start a career, full-time job, 9 to 5, whatever. But there's no that circle of influence where it kind of propels you to really open up your mind and get you to what you want to be, like your passion, or like your true passion, which is, creating video content and also, mixing music as well. So like, that's absolutely sick. Like I'm thinking about it now and I'm like, fuck, that's like amazing shit. So,
Thanks, brother.
And and it's just really inspiring for everyone else to hear, especially like the viewers now. And it just, it shows that, your circle of influence can really make a difference within your career and what you end up doing within your life. So yeah, man, it's very, very underrated a subject. Not a lot of people talk about it. So yeah, really good insight there. And also, just in extension to that discussion, would you say there was a lot of challenges and adversities on the way with reaching where you are now?
Yeah, there definitely is, man. And I think sometimes it's often the challenges or adversity that reinforces your convictions. They're the ones that if you hit the dip, or if you hit breaking point or the wall, or whatever your equivalent analogy is, of just that moment when you really have a crossroad and you have to dig deep. I think those are often the moments that define, like, if something's going to make you or break you. And I can, comfortably share, because it's a big part of my story and it's who I am, that, while I was on this kind of, eventual trajectory with content, as I said, it was kind of initially just a bit of an Instagram, phase of mine, I want to say, where I was just sharing fun content, and I quickly became known as kind of, the guy that would put up a cool video and everyone would love watching it. I'd recap a great trip with friends and we'd all tag each other. And I just found it was a really nice way of documenting, an event with more depth rather than breadth. I often found photos were static and you can't really elicit feelings, motion, energy, mood, persona, all that, as well as you can with video. So it happened to catch a bit of good momentum, and I kind of got, this really beautiful feedback loop that, oh, people like it, I enjoy doing it, I'm going to do more of it. And it kind of went up and up. And I guess, yeah, you could say it was it was kind of early 2019, and my housemate at the time I was living with in Sydney, she saw this competition that went live on Facebook, and it was quite literally defined as the dream job. So Bus About, one of those international travel, tour companies that, they do bus routes across Europe, Asia, a number of places in America as well. They were offering like a dream content creator role where you get like an all expenses paid trip, like the absolute dream. All you have to do is show up and make content every day and like do all of their adventures, do all their experiences. And like, I was like, look, like I'm pretty amateur. I'm a self-taught weekend videographer. I didn't go to film school. I'm shooting with an iPhone 8, which is still the same one that I've got to this day. Like literally, I've held this phone for like, I don't know, like 4 years, I reckon right now. I'm definitely due for an upgrade. I'm like 20 generations behind. But, little did I know at the time that I think my ability to maybe, captivate or really bring someone on a journey was what my strength was. Because I looked at more of the technical perspective of saying, oh, I'm not shooting with the most fancy camera and, I'm an amateur with my drone footage. And, I'm just hacking together what I've learned through hours of, I should say the University of YouTube, but that's basically been my teacher. So I had a crack. I entered the comp, and then a couple of weeks later, found out I was really lucky to have been placed and allocated on the European trip. So they did 3 trips with different content creators. I got paired up with another legend called Daniel. He's from Adelaide, so it's a bit of a dream team right there. And so we set off to go to Europe for what was going to be an 11-week trip. Absolute dream come true. That was also the same time, or a serendipitous timing, when I knew that I was looking to moving on from Uber. So I'd spent about 4.5 years working with the Uber driver operations team, and it had taken me to Sydney, to Singapore. I'd gone to so many wonderful places and just met so many incredible people and alumni that are still part of my community. But I just knew, I think in my heart of hearts, I was like, well, maybe this is the universe throwing out a really golden, big golden ticket and saying, take this opportunity, Dan. You've been sitting on content. If you really want to see, like how far you can take it, let's see how this goes. So, resigned gracefully from Uber, started the trip, met Dan in Amsterdam, kicked off on this, whirlwind adventure. And 4 weeks into the trip, I'll never forget it, obviously. But my birthday, for reference, is on the 23rd of August. And so it was the 19th of August. And in my mind, like we were on the way, I think we're going through East Europe, through like Albania and Montenegro. And we were due to get to the Greek islands around the weekend of my birthday, what would have been my 26th birthday. So we were already making plans and talking about like which islands we were going to and all that kind of stuff. And, obviously throughout the entire trip of the journey, I'd still been staying in contact with my partner, with my family. And yeah, crisis and adversity always seems to strike at just the most, most unpleasant ways, and it never really discriminates, doesn't have a day, doesn't have a purpose. It just does what it does. And I unfortunately found out on the other side of the world, on another time zone, my late and great father, Sylvester Odoi, had passed away from a sudden heart attack. He was only 61, and there were no warning signs. There were no indications or anything at all that was going to happen. I can't say that he was marathon fit, but I'm also not going to say that he wasn't out of shape. He was pretty well built, and I'd say was doing pretty well for someone at 61. But just like that, your whole world just gets flipped. Gravity goes in any direction, and all of life just gets suddenly suspended. So had to pull from the trip, fly home, got home like 4 days later. So I was kind of hanging in this suspended grieving where I wasn't with my family yet. I obviously hadn't seen my dad and didn't get to see him until, we were at the funeral home anyway. And just got plunged into this really surreal period, kind of mid to late 2019, where, I was just back in with the family in Melbourne, and we were working through it all, grieving, a lot of, spot fires to put out, a lot of challenges that we had to go through. So beyond even just being like a I guess a professional challenge, if you want to say, in terms of my content, but that was just a really big personal challenge that really shook me to my core. But I think, it was the worst thing to happen to me, and the best thing to happen to me, if that makes sense. That might have been a little thing to process, but I am who I am, and I'm here today, and I've pulled the trigger on so many things in my life, because I think that event really had to just cut the noise out, really put things into focus with my family, with my values, with what I wanted for my life. And realizing that if, that could happen to my dad and no one saw it coming, then who are we to say that, that tomorrow is guaranteed? Like, why aren't we living for today? Why aren't we doing the things that that really make today count. Because yeah, as I learned with Dad, tomorrow may never come. And after working through a bit of a challenging period, kind of off the tail end of 2019, decided that, I was in the middle of this trip. My dad was so proud of me for doing it. In fact, I might just quickly throw this on while we're recording, but this is my dad's first ever hand cam that he got from my family. So it's one of those chunky ones from the 90s that feels like 3 kilos when you lift it. And I always keep it with me. But it's always a reminder that, in many ways, I think my dad might have been the OG content creator in our family and the OG vlogger, because he's got hundreds of tapes, of family memories stored on it. And I remember discovering it in the wake of Dad's passing, and I just pulled out this box with hundreds of cassettes, and I just was just crying inconsolably for at least an hour. It just like, I don't know if maybe that was that was my suspended grief all of a sudden pouring out, and just how emotional that moment was. But that was a really powerful moment. I'll never forget that, because I think that, again, as I said, reinforced my convictions, my belief in myself, that sharing stories and being a storyteller and using technology to bring it together, much like how my dad had been doing when we were growing up, was something that was always going to be part of who I was. And as I said, that I think really defined what I wanted my future to be, and how I then started taking the steps from that point onwards to then figuring out, how do I build a roadmap? How do I get the right people on my team? How do I learn the skills I need to take this passion into a hobby? Everything I'd done up until that point was accidental. I accidentally, came across the competition from my housemate. I want to say I accidentally won, but there was no structure. There was no strategy to it. And now it was like, if this is something that I really want to sustain and make my life, I really want to be intentional about it. And that was probably the start of it. So the biggest low point, but probably also the big turning point of the story. And a big part of, again, why I'm here today, and why I even get the privilege of talking on this podcast.
Awesome, man. That's a very, very touching story. And I think the viewers will definitely get a lot of, just a lot from that in general. So it just proves that, you've still stuck by it. And sorry to hear about your father, mate, and your niche for the camera, basically. So with videography and all that, did that just come down to yourself always having that creative background within you? Like, obviously, any highlights that you had throughout your journey that you were working on, such as side projects or whatnot. And also, I know that you do DJing as well, so that's absolutely rad. So man, how do you blend the two together and just create kick-ass content? What's your philosophy, Nate, if that makes sense?
Thanks, man. Yeah, for sure. I've been trying to bottle and figure out what the secret sauce kind of is, so I can share it with others, because I don't really think it's necessarily rocket science. I think it's just kind of isolating each of the elements one by one, like with anything in life, whether it's you're trying to perfect the perfect jump shot, whether it's, trying to cook the perfect meal. There are all these different steps that are involved in the process. And it's about basically trying to become as good as you can at one of those single skills, and then moving on to the next one, and then moving on to the next one, and then blending it, like what we see, sports athletes or professionals in any field, they seem to do it so intuitively and so effortlessly, but that's because they've mastered the fundamentals so well, and the fundamentals always stand the test of time. So that's really it's not sexy, it's not amazing. I'll lay it in reference to kind of, how I blended, I think, the experiences of my life. But I think that's the philosophy that I really carry, is that, what I've been trying to build recently that we might chat about later in today's podcast is how I've been trying to kind of figure out how I can empower other people to work through that same process. I did it accidentally through a lot of trial and error and throwing stuff at the wall, and hours of frustration over a laptop that was crashing, and, an iPhone that was dropped, and feeling embarrassed in public filming myself. But I started realizing that you just had to systemize it and create a really easy process for you to actually work through, so that the end result, again, comes together, hopefully with some kind of, continuity and fluidity. So for me, man, coming back to that music note you mentioned, I grew up a huge fan of music. I was a bit of a nerd. I didn't play a sexy musical instrument. I played classical guitar for about 10 years. So classically trained, not contemporary trained, so I can't jazz it out or do cool rock solos. I'm very Baroque and classical music, but that laid the bedrock for a lot of my music theory and my music framework. So when years later, I was kind of introduced and compelled by dancing growing up, and my sisters had done it and they were quite good at it, but I didn't quite like, like necessarily, and this isn't against, jazz or contemporary or any of the other style of dancing, but it just didn't quite like get my interest. And when I went to the high school that I was at, Melbourne High School, there's just a phenomenal breakdancing, initiative there that's called Soul Power, and such a big collective of guys. And I was like, I've just never seen men like dancing like it was just a different experience to me, and everyone was didn't care how good or bad they were. We were all teaching, we were all super supportive. And so I think then that kind of like that musicality that I had growing up helped me actually count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So when we're doing choreographies and dancing to the beat, it already felt very intuitive. And so it's kind of like that was a building block that helped that then happened. Now, because I could then dance well and I knew what counting was like, then when my curiosity kind of started venturing to DJing, like I said before, I love trying to solve problems that I feel aren't being solved well. I noticed that a lot of DJs just didn't know how to mix, or I didn't feel like they knew how to. So I went to that. I remember going to socials and balls and uni events and being like, I reckon I could do better than this. And I just set that challenge to myself. So then I started bedroom DJing with some free software and found, oh, right. So my musicality and the fact that I know how important it is as a dancer to have continuity with rhythm then helped me become a DJ. And coupled with like being just an absolute music nerd, I love breaking music down into elements. I love isolating samples or, different beats, rhythms, compositions, and melodies, and how they all come together. So again, my brain kind of loves piecing that all together because I know there's always layers to it. And in a kind of strange, maybe segue that I might link into, if there's any video editors out there, if anyone who's edited a video, when you actually open up all the different parts of a movie or of a video, if you actually think about it, you've got visuals, you've got auditory experience, you've got like narrative, you've got pacing or rhythm if you want. So from an actual like visual perspective, if you literally look at how a video is made when it's edited in a software, there's all these layers that contribute towards it. So for me, it was kind of like, being a bit more meta and going, well, it's just this really beautiful process of pulling these blocks together of video, music, script, text, overlay, human subjects, mood, pacing, all whatnot. And so I think there was just this really strange flow that even right now, you've actually prompted and challenged me to think for the first time, how have all of these building block experiences in my life led me to kind of what was kind of there, and coupled with really enjoying public speaking and debating growing up. Those are skills that enabled me to have confidence to actually speak in front of the camera, which is obviously, I didn't just wake up and was good at that. I was probably like the shyest, most self-conscious kid growing up. I was usually a minority in any classroom, any basketball team that I was in. So I was actually usually the shyest and I didn't like attention, but bless mum, she knew that learning these skills, learning communication is just a game-changing skill in anything in life, because everything's communication, everything's relationships. There's nothing you can do in this world that doesn't rely on other people, and we're communal by nature. So I'm really glad she kind of, I want to say forced, but encouraged strongly me to follow those co-curriculars growing up. And then again, I was just really fortunate that I think that all materialized in the same era that, as I said earlier, iPhone technology now gives you the ability to literally shoot like cinematic quality video, where once you've learned the technicalities and you understand how to actually play around with footage and video, you can actually make something that looks quite high production. And so the feedback I often got a lot was, Dan, this looks really high quality. This looks high production. And then people would always be surprised when I'm said, well, I just shot that with my iPhone 6 or like more recently my iPhone 8. And they just couldn't understand what that concept was. But because in my mind, I understood that there were all of these building blocks that needed to go into it to make the finished product look like what it was. And so again, I kind of accidentally stumbled across it just because of this never-ending curiosity in terms of like, how can I learn this skill? How can I master that? How can I take my, my pacing as a musician and apply that into video? So often when you try edit videos, you might try time them to the beat so that you can elicit a kind of emotion. The big kind of tension or the climax of a video might coincide with the same time the music drops into the chorus. So little things like that just started becoming intuitive, but it only comes from really understanding the fundamentals and practicing them for years. So yeah, the tip of the iceberg is some of the great content that you might see on my Instagram, but what's below the surface is a lot of trial and error, a lot of experimentation, and just a lot of like, following my curiosity and being really grateful it kind of found its way into something that, just kind of ticks a lot of boxes for me and really like, always challenges me to say, I can keep getting better. You're only as good as your last video, or you're only as good as your last shot, is what I always believe. So there's always something you can improve on. And that kind of mindset of constant improvement or marginal improvements, I think is what always kind of, excites me.
Brilliant response, mate. And it just shows that, there's so many ways of using an iPhone and utilizing an iPhone for, video content and media that a lot of people don't realize. Yeah, it's really good that like you're able to like tap into all those and explore, what, for example, like the iPhone 8, like, to pretty much get its full capabilities out of it, and just create stunning content. And as well as blending in, all the music behind it, and how you describe that, uh, all media has, different layers to the eye. So it's definitely a very smart way to market. And also, yeah, man, it goes back to sales and marketing as well. And communication is very big. So I think that's another underrated skill that people don't look at a lot. So yeah, man, like you're always up and about, I can see. So it definitely shows that that you've come a long way. So no, kudos to you, bro.
Thanks, brother. No, I appreciate it. You're so right. You're so right on what you touched on. Just piggybacking off, as I said, it's for me, it's about leveraging. Okay, that probably sounds like a very, very business centric term. So there's my business degree coming through. But to me, it's really about leaning in and kind of like amplifying what you already are. And so that's why often when it comes to video content, and why I really believe, like, you can find like when you find authenticity, you see that because there isn't a difference between someone when the camera goes on or the camera goes off, because they're so comfortable with who they are and what they know their flaws are and their strengths are. Like, my confidence doesn't come from me ignoring my flaws. My actual confidence comes from leaning into them and playing with them, and sometimes actually like being quite self-deprecating and playful with them, that I know those are my things, whether it's that I'm too short or I'm too energetic or whatever it might be. Like, I'm actually aware of those, and kind of enabling others to be like, how can I like merge all of my unique interests into one? Because I'm not expecting people to make video content that's like, deconstructing music and DJing and dancing in their like office studio, because that's what I do. That's uniquely me. Like, if you knew me for the last 10, 15 years, you'd say, well, of course Dan's going to do that, because he can't shut up about DJing. He's always spinning music too loud. And he's always spending money at like music festivals and whatnot, with an iPhone in hand recording the experience. So it's kind of a natural extension. So I kind of challenge to anyone who's kind of a bit overwhelmed or unsure about exactly, what do I need to make, or who do I need to be on the camera? You just need to be whoever you really are, because that's where you're going to get your energy and your confidence from. That's what's going to help you overcome all of that paralysis analysis that we often have, like what do you know better than anyone else? What makes you as uniquely you? Like, what gives you this nearly unfair advantage, knowing that there's no one who's ever going to be like you in the world, and no one has ever been like you in the past. You have this beautiful window of life to just fully amplify who you are. And you just never know, how that might change someone else's life, or how that might change your own. So yeah, that's a really big part of, for me, how it all comes together, man, in the big cauldron of life. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely agreed, man. That's just awesome. And I think that last point you said, to be yourself, like to be unique, I think that's where it's at. Like, a lot of people, I mean, I've seen it myself. I've done it myself. I've tried to be someone different. And I think it's weird, because it kind of like zaps your energy, if anything. Like, you kind of you just don't know what to do. Like, you just seem like too robotic, if that makes sense. And I think the fact that it goes back to values, and what you really, really want to get out of in life is to really follow what aligns with you. And I find that if you do that, like if you live life like that, you're just always, you stress less. You're always energetic. You do like what you're doing now, with video content and communication and customer service, just hockey sticks, man. Like,
yeah,
it just goes absolutely nuts in a good way. So excellent point there, man. And just a few more things, dude. So your ideal customer, since obviously you produce content, so do you now produce content for other clients and help out businesses? Like, maybe just a bit of a background there just for the viewers.
Yeah, no, you've got it, man. It's become, it's an evolving kind of business model that I'm working through. But yeah, happy to kind of open the hood and say, yeah, when you've developed this skill set, there's a number of ways or number of things you can do with it. So you can do it for others. So I've been really, I guess, fortunate that, again, with that extended network I mentioned between my kind of Uber alumni and other friends, that have known me, often they're some of your best ambassadors, and sometimes they do marketing for you. So when they have someone in their network that needs video content, they'll drop you a DM and say, hey, I actually don't know where to get started. And, I just need some videos for my new brand, for my small business, for my passion project. I'm a coach, I'm a side hustler, I'm in the marketing team in my business. And I just, there's no roadmap because video content's still such a new thing. It's still in such infancy. And so when that happens, yeah, if that person aligns, and often for me, it's, I love working in the startup small business space. It's something about, people having a crack and doing things that light them up. That really gives me a lot of energy, and it kind of helps me kind of, I don't know, reinforce what even I'm doing myself if it's a little bit meta. So that's why I've always been drawn, I think, towards the startup space. Sharing a new message, someone who's created something that didn't previously exist before. So small businesses and kind of solopreneurs out there hustling and crushing it, or who are working full time, but in the evening they might be burning the midnight oil and learning everything they can on Skillshare and YouTube about how to design a logo and do this and how to create customers and all that kind of stuff. I love it. So I think what I've been really fortunate in that aspect of my business is I get to work with a really wide range of industries, organizations. I learned so much about, problems and different challenges in the world that we have. I get to work with, for example, a company that does like basically bed sharing pillow products for families to help them sleep better. I work with a recruitment agency across health and education industries. I work with a kind of smart RFID protected like premium leather wallet. So learning about kind of EDC and kind of design, and so many one-off projects that keep coming my way. I think it kind of has, it continues to fuel that appetite I mentioned I had at university, where I just like learning about stuff that's outside of my little bubble or outside of my four walls. So that was kind of where the business started. I was like, oh, okay, great. There are people that want me to do videos for them. I've never advertised, so it's really wonderful recognition or validation. But because I'm only a one-man team, and for anyone who might ever jump on my Instagram, you might notice that my partner's cat Leo features in a lot of stuff. He's the only other teammate that I've really got, and he's pretty useless at editing stuff. So until I either hire a lot more people in my team, there's only so many hours of the day that I can make videos for. And I started realizing that a lot of people were actually happy to learn how to do it themselves. They just didn't know where to start. And it is a really overwhelming process because it's something, again, I just fumbled into over the last 10 years and figured things out myself. Now, if I could tell myself, 10 things to younger version of me from 10 years ago, that probably would have cut my learning curve in half. And so as I started kind of just freely helping friends, jumping on calls, screen sharing, sending them tutorials, guiding them through how to make their first video or edit, I suddenly started realizing that even though I wasn't being reimbursed for it, like my cup, like spiritually, like I was full. I was like, I'm getting way more of a kick from teaching people how to fish than actually fishing for them. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with me making videos for other people. And that, it's enabled me to scale my business and invest in the business and get me to where I'm at. But I know that longer term, in terms of impact and scaling myself sustainably, that is the avenue that, in recent months has kind of revealed itself in a really wonderful way, especially as like every platform is completely video centric right now. Everyone's moving towards it. Instagram's throwing down against TikTok. Netflix is competing against YouTube. YouTube's competing against TV. Everything's wherever the video's at. And so, yeah, it was kind of this serendipitous timing where I didn't start making videos 10 years ago because I thought that in 2021, there was going to be a global pandemic that just like tripled online video uptake. But I've just kind of been fortunate that I'm in this window of history when this is something that's going to have prominence. And who knows, it might be VR in 10 years and my skill set might be redundant, but hopefully I've learned something that, still makes me relevant at that point in time. So yeah, it's kind of late started shifting more towards teaching and empowering other people to find their own authenticity, get comfortable, find their own way with video, whether that's in front of the camera, it's behind the camera, and just really amplifying, their own passion, the own problems that they're solving. Because, as my program kind of has, as I've finally found a name for it, I've actually called it Creators with Charisma. Because from my own experience, I've come to learn that when you really show authenticity, you both attract your dream customers and clients, but you also repel the ones you don't want to work with. And authenticity is one of those really easy filters that doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost, the millions in paid ads, but actually enables your dream avatar, your dream customer to sort themselves out. So I'm not surprised that most of the people who gravitate towards me or my content like music as well, might have, a polyracial background. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And so many clients that have mentioned, they're like, hey, that video you made about Daft Punk or that video you made about so-and-so, that was fire. By the way, can you make videos for me? And at no point in making those videos did I ever sell or actually advertise that I'm doing videos for other people. In fact, I'm really fortunate. I've never had to advertise that I'm actually editing videos for other people, because, you know, I really believe that, again, that authenticity and that charisma is so, it's just so cut through in a world of, as I said, like so much, so many facades, so much mediocrity online, so many people trying to say this, and everyone's skepticism and BS radar is like to an absolute all-time high. Like my default is I challenge critically everything that pops up in my newsfeed, more than ever, because I'm always questioning, was I targeted? Was it the algorithm? Is there a reason that's there? You know, what's the proof? Has that person substantiated what they're saying? Is that just a headline? You know, and I know everyone's BS detector is high. So as soon as you have genuine authenticity, humans are humans at the end of the day. Like if you convey it through video, through voice, through podcast, through a book, or through in person, like we know it when we see it, we feel it when we feel it. And I think, yeah, video is just an incredible tool to leverage authenticity in ways that we never could have 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago, or at least when there were gatekeepers like, you know, TV stations and radio stations and media companies. They were the gatekeepers towards you doing that. Now you can broadcast yourself. So the question is, do you want to do it authentically and true to yourself? Or do you want to do it, you know, kind of incongruent with who you are and what aligns with you? Because I can tell you, I've tried that, like you mentioned before, and your energy flattens. Your audience can probably see it, and you're just not enjoying the process. So yeah, I've been really big about encouraging people to work towards the former, because yeah, I'm kind of on a mission to cut crap content that's online and really get everyone, like, you know, communicating like humans at the end of the day.
Excellent, man. Great point there with the, you know, with that motivation into all that. So I think that it's you know, especially the service that you offer with, you know, doing it for free and giving back to someone else is probably more fulfilling than, you know, possibly maybe even immediately charging, because I think it's where the experience lies. So I think that valuable experience that you can have, and then you can teach others to do it in a sustainable and fun way. Because, like, you know, you always, like, now, you know, speaking to you, like, you're an energetic guy, like you're like always positive, and I think that makes a difference to the viewer. So I do see, like, for example, like I'll scroll on Facebook sometimes and I'll just see like some negative stuff, and
Yeah,
it's not good to the eye, and I think it just demotivates people. But with actual content creation such as what you're doing now, I think it just empowers more people. So yeah, man, on the money there.
thanks, brother. It means a lot, man.
Yeah, man. And pretty much to wrap it up, dude, what's new, what's upcoming for Mamba? Any new projects or whatnot?
Yeah, so to everyone who's tuning in at the moment, I'm currently residing in Brisbane. So I'm living with my partner. I was originally born and bred in Melbourne, so that's where my family is at the moment. So at the time, at least, of recording, you know, Melbourne's kind of just been given a gradual, you know, confidence towards coming out of lockdown. So I guess, yeah, on a personal front, really looking forward to be able to reconnect with so many friends and family that I haven't hugged, seen, laughed, had a drink with, had a dance with for, I don't know, 18, nearly 24 months. That's a big thing personally for me, man. Not to say that I haven't enjoyed, you know, life up here in Brisbane. It's been really wonderful. I've been, you know, moved in with my partner. And we've adopted a furry kid called Leo, who runs around a lot. But yeah, I do really miss a lot of my friends down there. So that's going to be a big one for me, kind of probably post-summer when things are looking a bit better. And then, yeah, I guess in terms of the business and whatnot, I've just been going through a process of, yeah, understanding and kind of appreciating how to scale and support, you know, more creators out there. Really just kind of pull the trigger on making just awesome content and really learn and compact, I should say, everything that I've kind of taken from the last 10 years and make it a process that everyone can kind of run with and share with their own community. Because if I think how much my life has changed and the amazing people and opportunities that have been attracted because of it, and even including this podcast, right? Like, you know, everything was all a butterfly effect to this moment. I just can't imagine how different, you know, everyone's life might be if they can do that. So yeah, coming early 2022, you know, I've just recently shared it on my socials, but I'm really excited that I'll be kind of formally launching Creators with Charisma, which will kind of be a full-scale group coaching program. I'm going to support people go through the process. We're going to have an amazing community of people from all walks of life, all industries, all kinds of startups. Because if there's one thing that I wish I had 10 years ago when I was like on my content journey, was like accountability and community. I was like the nerd staying late at night at 2 a.m, like editing videos, watching YouTube videos on how to do stuff. But I just know that if I think if I had more people alongside me, that's something that's going to be really important to me. So yeah, for me, the rest of the year is kind of like finalizing the program. I'm working with a number of one-on-one clients to kind of help them kind of adapt what I've really pack together and make their own content. And then, yeah, I think once that gets the finishing touches, just hit the gas and go for it in 2022, man. I feel there's a big appetite, not just with me, but with the whole world to kind of like pull the trigger and come out of the gate swinging, and everything that we thought about in this very introspective, challenging period. I feel like a lot of people are motivated to just like go for it. And so maybe the turn of the new year is going to be just what we all need. And hopefully my program can help people do that. So yeah, that's what what I got on the radar.
Excellent, man. That's so cool. And I think it's perfect timing as well coming into the new year and what's just happened. Yeah, man, they'll pop. So no, that's really good to
I hope
hear.
so. Thanks,
Daniel,
bro.
and yeah, good luck with everything. And just lastly, man, for the viewers, where can we find you on socials?
Oh, thanks, Ran. I don't usually give myself the plug, but if you like any of my madness, my music, or my dancing, you can find me at Dat Black Mamba. So that's DAT Black Mamba. Mamba spelled MAMBA. So you can find that, or you can just search Daniel Odoi. Hopefully I'll pop up and one of my videos can bring a smile to your dial.
Excellent, man. Thank you. Thanks for being part of the show.
Absolute pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on. All right.
Cheers, brother. Thank you.